So today I decided to talk about the silent of silence again. To keep silent, the bull sphinx and the sign of Taurus, element of earth. So in a show, a recent episode by Brian Tyler Cohen, he talks about JD Vance and how he practiced the sign of silence. Because I heard during the show, well, he plays a clip by JD Vance in which he talks about what was, being spoken amongst with the advisors. I'm assuming the Joint Chiefs of Staff and Pete Hegseth, but not taking gospel on that. And then, well, he decides to practice OPSEC, which is something that you should practice if you're in a position like that. Not only because, OPSEC is just something you should practice, also because, it's just kind of, the sign of silence to know, to dare, to will, to keep silent. Yeah, that's silence, OPSEC. And, he's also Marine. So, if you've been in the military, you work for the government in that kind of capacity, it's kind of a big deal. It's just part of it. So, on to more with it. Yawn. On to more with it. He then decides to give JD Vance a tongue lashing because he was flip flopping on Donald Trump. He talks about, JD Vance, he was standing totally in front of him and he was, just like totally standing behind him and supporting him every step along the way about, wanting to end wars in the Middle East. And then, he fucking complains about how JD Vance decides not to disclose his position on the war in Iran or about what happened on with the advisors, joint chiefs of staff, all that. Um, and then Brian Cohen decides to talk. Well, JD Vance seems like the kind of guy that would just stab Donald Trump in the back. He just has blind ambition, blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm not saying that Brian Tyler Cohen doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. I'm sure he knows at least somewhat of what he's talking about. And I'm not claiming that I 100% know that I'm what I'm talking about. All I know is that I've been in, a position like JD Vance where, OPSEC was a really big deal. And yes, there was blackmail going on with one of my clients that I worked for, that I did security for. And so, I'm going to practice OPSEC here by not giving you details about what I did. And I was in the military as well. You know, I was in the U.S. Army. J.D. Vance was in the Marine Corps, yada, yada, yada. And then he complains, automatically just jump to conclusion, casting his lots. Brian Cohen, what he does, about how J.D. Vance is a coward. He's a coward. No, practicing the sign of silence does not make you a coward. It just means you're practicing one of the four powers of the Sphinx. I mean, you should be practicing all four of them: to know, to dare, to will, and to keep silent. But practicing the four powers of the Sphinx doesn't make you a coward. I mean, that's just, that's that. And then there's OPSEC. I mean, what he explicitly stated that was that he, was backing Trump in his lack of support for continuing wars in the Middle East, in which, Donald Trump has kind of decided to go back on, apparently. But JD Vance didn't all of a sudden express that he changed his mind as well. He just said, well, He's said what he said, and he said what he said by not saying much, as he should have. Look, I'm not here defending JD Vance on what he did. I'm just here highlighting that, he practiced the four powers of the Sphinx. And I know that these people are in the know because, I mean, I'm someone in the know. Also, you know, and I see it in the comments too about how, oh, JD Vance, he has this unchecked ambition and Trump won't stand for it because, he has this unchecked ambition and he can't be controlled, because he's a coward. It's a bit of a contradiction here. And I know the term coward is used very loosely when, speaking in regards to these major conflicts like this. However, it is used improperly and does give people like me the temptation to want to mock you and just be completely condescending towards you. But I'm not doing that because I'm deciding to know, dare, will, and to keep the sign of silence for myself. So there you have it. Take care.